Hi guys! A few years ago I celebrated my 30th birthday in Jerusalem. I knew it has a huge cultural significance and interesting history, so I visited the Holy City and I was also be able to swim in the Dead Sea. Now I'm going to show you the Holy City's main sites. Jerusalem is an incredible city filled with beautiful sights and definitely worth visiting even if you do not consider yourself a religious person like myself. But sadly, every once in a while the news are focusing on the region. I wanted to understand what is happening. I want to share with you what I learned about the connections between the different religions, the motivations of the decade-long wars, several peace negotiations and agreements, and how they shaped Jerusalem that led to the situation in which its citizens are living today. A few years ago, I bumped into a YouTube series called The Middle Ground, where people from the opposite side discuss their beliefs and try to understand each other. There was a video about this topic, where 3 Israelis and 3 Palestinians answered questions like why having a homeland for their people is so important to them.
I think that Israel needs to be our homeland because if we won't have a homeland, no one else is going to accept us anywhere else, especially because there's a lot of racism and anti-Semitism as well. So if we're not going to be here, where are we going to go?
Okay, for me as a Muslim, the Holy Land, why it's so important. First of all, because I was born here. I have no place, another place.
Okay, let's start our journey and go way back. This is Adam and Eve on the famous painting titled The Fall of Man. And yes, this is where I believe the whole story starts. Adam and Eve were the first man and women according to the creation myth of the Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. You will see that these religions have many things in common. To understand why, let's go through each of them and their relationship to each other briefly. Abraham, according to the biblical book of Genesis, departed for Canaan because God called him to found a new nation in an undesignated land. Abraham had a son named Isaac. Over 1,000 years after Abraham, the Jews were living as slaves in Egypt. Moses led the Jews out of slavery to the Holy Land. It is the area roughly located between the Mediterranean Sea and the eastern bank of the Jordan River. Jesus Christ was born in Bethlehem, close to Jerusalem, from a Jewish mother, Mary. Christians believe he is the Son of the God and sometimes referred to as the King of the Jews. However, Jewish belief doesn't accept him as a Messiah. Ishmael was the first son of Abraham. In Islam, Ishmael is regarded as a prophet and an ancestor to Muhammad. Muhammad is believed by Muslims to be the messenger for God and founded the third Abrahamic religion, Islam. In the story of Muhammad's night journey, he traveled from Mecca to Jerusalem and ascended into heaven. All 3 religions have a close connection to Jerusalem and the land, and some of the most sacred places for each of them are found here. Now, the Holy City is divided into 4 parts: Christian Quarter, Muslim Quarter, Armenian Quarter, and Jewish Quarter. As I mentioned, in Christian faith, Jesus preached and healed in Jerusalem. Tradition holds that he was arrested and had a trial in front of Jewish judges and sentenced by Pontius Pilate to be crucified outside Jerusalem's walls. Located in the Christian Quarter, the Church of the Holy Sepulcher contains the 2 holiest sites in Christianity: the site where Jesus was crucified and Jesus' empty tomb where he had been buried and resurrected. The church is managed by 6 of Christianity's oldest churches under a complex tradition called status quo. It states that nothing can be changed without the consensus from all 6 Christian communities, and this is why there is a so-called immovable ladder outside the window for centuries. This part of Jerusalem is the Temple Mount. Jerusalem has been the holiest city in Judaism and is given a special status in Jewish law. In particular, Jews outside Jerusalem praying facing its direction. The foundation stone is considered the place from which the creation of the world began. This part is considered a sacred site in Islamic tradition too, along with Mecca and Medina. The Dome of the Rock, built over the foundation stone, is believed the place where Muhammad ascended into heaven. Christians and Jews may only visit the site as tourists, and they are not allowed to enter the Dome of the Rock or carry any religious items or pray. Because of the Temple Mount restrictions, the western walls in the Jewish district is the holiest and the closest place to the foundation stone where Jews are permitted to pray. Ownership of this site and Jerusalem is a continuous issue in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict because both nations consider it as its capital. However, Jerusalem has been the scene for confrontations between Jews and Muslims for many years. The old city of Jerusalem is surrounded by a large wall which has 8 major gates. The eastern gate, facing the Mount of Olives, is quite unique. The gate is said to be the point at which the Jewish Messiah will enter the city of Jerusalem, and therefore, in order to prevent this from happening, during the Ottoman Empire, it was sealed. Outside of the Golden Gate lies a Muslim cemetery to keep the Jews away, as it is considered unclear for a Jew to enter a Muslim cemetery. On the other side of the valley, there is a Jewish cemetery on the Mount of Olives, because, according to tradition, this is where the Messiah will come on the Day of Judgment, and this is where the dead will be resurrected. Owning or occupying this land have been a centuries-long debate between the followers of each religion. The Christian Church had many crusades to the area between the 11th and the 15th century, with the objective of conquering the Holy Land from Islamic rule. Between the 14th and the early 20th centuries, Ottoman Empire controlled much of southern Eastern Europe, Western Asia and Northern Africa. The Ottoman Empire slowly was on a decline, and after the First World War, it fell just like the German and the Austro-Hungarian empires. More and more people in the region wanted to be not just an ethnic group, but a distinct national identity with their own country, like the Palestinians who have been living in the area. At the same time, more and more Jews were joining a movement called Zionism. Its main goal was the re-establishment of the Jewish state. After the First World War, British and French empires divided the area. The British wanted to give Palestinian people independence, but also allow the migration of Jews. Tens of thousands of Jews moved there, buying houses and land, and after some time the tension between the two groups grew. What is more, after the First World War, Jews became targets in Europe, and during the Holocaust, many Jews forced to move to other countries. In 1945, the United Nations was formed to maintain international peace and security, and Great Britain said goodbye and left them this issue to solve. The UN took into consideration both parties' needs and proposed a plan to divide the area into 2 separate states: a Jewish state, Israel, and an Arab state, Palestine. Jerusalem would become a special international zone. This plan required compromises from both sides, and finally Jews accepted it and declared the independent state of Israel in 1948. A border was created called Green Line, but the other side saw it as another way for countries to steal their land. So many Arab states declared the war on Israel to create a unified Arab Palestine. Israel won the war and extended its border beyond the original UN plan. Many Palestinians left their homes, creating a massive refugee population in the surrounding countries. In 1967, during the Six-Day War, Israel occupied other areas outside the UN plan. Israelis started to move in the area, forming settlements, building roads, houses and schools. They say they captured these empty lands in war, just like many empires over the history, like Spain or Great Britain. The other side say Israel tried to occupy these areas and they want to push Palestinians out of the region. The United Nations issued a resolution which states that the policy and the practices of Israel in establishing settlements have no legal validity. Palestinians started to protest, sometimes with extreme violence. Several groups were formed, like the Palestine Liberation Organization and Hamas, a radical nationalist group which, unlike the Liberation Organization, does not recognize Israel's rights to exist. Finally, in 1993, Yitzhak Rabin, the Prime Minister of Israel, and Yasser Arafat, the first president of Palestine, signed the Oslo Peace Accords at the White House with President Bill Clinton as the official witness. There was hope they will solve this issue. This agreement gave Palestinians a government and divided the occupied area into 3 parts. One of my favorite YouTubers, Johnny Harris, addresses this topic in several videos.
Area A gave Palestinians total control over security and government. This makes up about 18% of the West Bank, but most of the Palestinian population centers are here. This was a big deal because it gave Palestinians self-rule for the first time. Area B was designated for Palestinian government control while retaining Israeli security control, meaning the Israeli military remains very present there. Area B is about 22% of the West Bank. Area C remained completely under the Israeli military and government control. This is where all the settlements are in Area C, and it's about 60% of the West Bank.
This map is a mess. But before we go on, let's focus on the Gaza Strip, which was placed under Palestinian rule. In 2005, Israel started to remove Israeli settlers from the Gaza Strip, and by 2007, with violence, Hamas gained power over the area. Some countries, like Canada, the European Union, classify Hamas as a terrorist organization. Others, like Australia and the United Kingdom, classify only its military wing. Brazil, China, Norway, or Turkey does not consider it as a terrorist organization at all. Because of the violent incidents in Gaza, a wall was created along the Green Line. Israel describes the wall as a necessary security barrier against terrorism. However, Palestinians call it as a racial segregation. For Israeli Jews, the wall have little if any effect on them. But for the Palestinians, those walls are very visible because Palestinians have been divided into 4 areas. Getting an Israeli citizenship is quite complicated. The Jewish law of return allows every Jew a right to immigrate to Israel and claim Israeli citizenship upon arrival. And as far as I know, those Palestinians who are living in the surrounding countries as refugees cannot move back to the West Bank or get Israeli citizenship. Israel say they only defending themselves against terrorist organizations which want to destroy Israel, like Hamas. This is why every Israeli Jew over the age of 18 is obligated military service in the Israeli Defense Forces. Gal Gadot, the actress who played Wonder Woman, was born in Israel and served a mandatory 2 years as a soldier. Palestinians still want a state that they could call home, but many Palestinians want to restore the unified Arab Palestine. Gigi and Bella Hadid's father was born in Palestine, and they openly support the Free Palestine movement on their Instagram page. I hope I managed to explain everything objectively. I totally understand that every coin has 2 sides. My main purpose was to give you a better understanding of the history. I kindly ask you, if you are not involved, try not to pick a side. I listed several related videos in the description below if you want to learn more, and I want to close this video with a sentence from the middle ground video earlier.
If we continue to do what we did until now, it's probably going to stay, and we need to do something else.